So, how exactly does this choose your own adventure keynote concept work? That's the question I got from a number of people over the past couple of weeks. So, you might have seen that I had mentioned this in a few posts that I was going to be doing a conference. It happened last week, and I was going to be setting it up as a choose your own adventure. And I got several messages from people who were excited and confused and curious and all sorts of things. So today I'm going to take you behind the scenes and explain to you the three things that it took to pull this off. And technically, it is not a very difficult process, but this comes with a warning. Okay. So, kids, don't try this at home without parental supervision. And that is my number one, I guess, warning that comes with this concept is this is not for everybody. This is not for every occasion, and it is not for anyone who is not really comfortable speaking. If you don't have a lot of experience presenting and you think, oh, this will just be kind of a novel way to make things interesting or, engage the audience, I would encourage you not to do it. And that's just, because I love you and I want you to look your best. And I will tell you that doing this requires a lot of preparation. And that's the other thing. If you know you can't commit to the time to prepare. If you're one of those people that's changing the slides as you're running up on the stage, virtual or otherwise, if you're one of those people that's making those last minute changes right up to showtime, this is not for you. This really does require a level of a really a commitment to preparing. It is best, I would say, for people who have enough experience speaking that you could speak on your topic without any slides, without a script, that you know your stuff and you are comfortable. And again, you don't have to. I'm not pretending to be the world's foremost speaker, but I've done it enough, and I was talking about topics that were either personal enough or that I have enough experience that they just are things I could talk about without thinking about it. So those are some things just to think about. Not trying to discourage anybody, but I want to be honest about it and I want to set the proper expectations. I think that's super important whenever we're putting any sort of a model out there to say, hey, I did this and you can do it too. You absolutely can. It's not hard, but it does require the preparation. And you also honestly, I think you have to have the temperament to say, this might not go well. This might not work. And I knew that the audience I was going to be speaking in front of was a relatively warm audience. I didn't know everyone there, but it was an organization where I knew a number of people. I I felt confident that even if it didn't quite go exactly as I planned, didn't quite work as nicely as I thought it wasn't going to be catastrophic. That, people were not going to be like, "Oh my gosh, why did they bring this person in to speak like, she looked like an idiot or whatever." Cuz let's face it, if you've been following me for any period of time, you know that on occasion I admit I fall down, I fail, I sometimes look a little goofy. I own it. It's part of me. So I don't shy away from that sort of quirkiness. But anyway, that's a lot of explanation before we get to the actual thing. So, but that is the first thing. That is the number one thing. You need to be committed to preparing for this because when I say choose your own adventure, that is exactly what it was. I created basically branch scenarios that the audience could take me on. They literally got to choose what topics I talked about. So I had to have all of the topics prepared for. And I wasn't going to walk in and make it up as I went, but you also couldn't prepare the entire thing to say, this is the exact flow that it's going to go on, because I did not know what the exact flow was that I was going to go on. Now, I will tell you, I did make notes. I did have a couple of pages of just the various topics that they could take me through. I did put down a couple of like keywords. So it wasn't a script or anything. It was literally a couple of keywords under each, like bullet points, under each of the possible topics, just in case. Because again, when you're trying to build that sort of flow on the fly, and you want it to be cohesive, you don't want it to feel totally disjointed. I wanted to have a couple of variations. So actually, I had a couple of different options or stories or examples under each of the categories kind of ready in case. So as I saw what direction they wanted to go, I could choose the ones that I thought kind of, would make the best overall experience. So that's the first thing. Really over prepare. You're going to have to write way more script. And I'm, again, not a script, but you kind of have to have that language in your head at your fingertips ready to go, and a lot more of it than I would have otherwise. I had about a 40-minute, it was about a 40, I think we went a little bit over because I kind of rolled the Q&A in. I didn't do it at the end. So we had a little more, we'll call it 45 to 50 minutes. So that's the first thing. And I would say that is the main thing. So if you're still with me and you still think this is a cool idea that you want to try, the second thing you would have to have is some way for the audience to vote, to choose what pathways you take. Now, in this case, I'll show you in a minute. In this case, I was using Mentimeter, and I was using it just because I like the fact that it gets the person holding their phone. It gets them. I know this is an audience that was probably triple, quadruple tasking. One of the things they probably were doing was something on their phone. I wanted to give them something related to what we were talking about to do on that phone. It's a little subtle trick, pulls them back in a little bit. Also, Mentimeter, I love. They're not paying me to say that. They could if they wanted to. That'd be okay with me. But I have used it in many, many different situations, and I really love the product. Very clean. And I will explain a little bit later, but I actually did the whole thing in Mentimeter. So I had created some slides in PowerPoint. I had exported them as images. I'll explain why I do that in just a moment. And then I had imported them into Mentimeter. So I could just pull up that one screen and I could take people through the whole process. I was not going to use a lot of slides in the presentation. It was really me talking to people. This was about connecting with people. And I just only pulled the slide share up periodically to basically to let them vote and to go through the process. So I did use that, but I could have done it. I was working with a conference, so it was not my Zoom setup where I could have, pre-set up polls or something. Could have done it with polling within Zoom or whatever. Again, whatever technology you're using, you just need some way for people to make their selection. And there's tons out there, whether you use a polling app, whether you had them vote in the chat. That'd be a little harder just to keep track of, but you could do what I've done. I've done similar things like that. Just put it in the chat, A, B, or C. So whatever means of voting, you could do raise hands, you could do whatever. Doesn't really matter. But you need to decide that ahead of time how you are going to have the audience participate in terms of making their selections. So that's the second piece you need. You just need some way to let them choose. And then the third piece, which is not actually required to make this work was some sort of visuals. And I thought it was important for a number of reasons. First of all, just to have some pattern interruptions. They don't need to stare at my head for 45 minutes. So you get that pattern interrupt, which is good. Uh, some simple graphics just to sort of establish the theme. In this case, the theme was around a map. The presentation was actually called A Map to the Next Normal, and MAP was an acronym. Each of the letters represented some of the words that they could choose. So actually they didn't get to choose. M was for mindset. When they got to A, they got to choose between action and adaptability. When they got to P, they got to choose between people, progress, and play. So it sort of branched as we went. Again, it was relatively simple. I couldn't, that still required me to have content for 6 items, and as opposed to 3, that if I was just, if I had picked one letter, one word for each letter. So, that did, again, back to point 1, that did increase the preparation that was required, and the sort of thought process that you had to go through. But anyway, I like the immersion of having some visuals that kind of set the tone. So there was a couple of simple slides that had sort of a map background, showing that they're going on a journey, showing where the little stops are along the way. And again, at the end, I will show you a few of the how that looked. But again, what I did was simply make some PowerPoint slides, and there were only a few of them. Make a few PowerPoint slides. I then exported those as images. And the reason I do that not just for this type of thing. I frequently do that because if I'm working with someone, particularly in a platform where you pre-upload things, or if I know I have to send the slides ahead because someone else is going to be sharing them or anything like that, you always have to be concerned. Even if you embed the fonts and you do all the right things, things happen. I like knowing the slide is going to look the way the slide is going to look. So it also makes the files smaller quite often. So if I'm not using any video or transitions or anything like that, I go ahead and export all of the slides as images, and then I pop those images back into a presentation and save that one. And that's the one I use and send off to whomever is uploading it into whatever platform they'll be using for their event. So that's just a little tip. So in this case, I did it so that I could use those images as backgrounds on slides in Mentimeter. So again, I've done it the other way where I've had PowerPoint running and Mentimeter in a browser window and just switch back and forth. And it's not hard. It's just it's just kind of an extra thing you have to keep track of while you're running your presentation, especially if you are flying solo. You don't have a producer that can help with any of that part of it. So again, make your life easier. So there's a whole lot of extra stuff in this video that's outside of the actual choose your own adventure, but hey, bonus content, yay. So that's the 3 things. So next thing we'll do is I will just quickly take you in and show you the slides and just sort of the what it ended up with in the presentation. So that'll be what we'll take a look at next. Okay, so let's share the screen and I'll show you what we ended up with. So again, very simple. I would love to have, I'll be honest, I would love to have spent a little more time making the graphics a little better. I'm just going to say that, a little better. But in the long run, it was really not about the graphics. So I kind of had to go, you know what, there's other things going on right now, and we gotta good is good enough. So just something else to think about. So here you see we had just sort of, we were starting in last year. I was talking about, the different things that led me to the topics that we were going to talk about. I'm not going to go through the whole presentation here. So I asked them to come up with some words to describe. And again, first of all, get them engaging, get them talking, sort of set the stage that this is going to be interactive. It's not just me going to be talking at you. So I did a little quick thing there first before we started the choosing adventure part. So then we start on our trip and I take them to a location. And again, this was just a little added bit of immersion of, I was talking about a journey. We were, let's all go on a trip together because they were going to be doing the choose your own adventure. I said, the audience is my GPS. You use the language that sticks with the theme and all those sorts of things. So again, little creative gamified sort of language and choices along the way. So again, then at this point, when we got to, I said, okay, now, we're back in the car kind of thing, and we're going to our next location. This is where they made their first choice. So I kind of set the stage. You're going to choose between these two locations, because again, we're using kind of the map theme. And then again, taking them back into, and they voted. And so now, okay, that's the direction we're going to go. So, and as you can see, we had a pretty good number of people that participated. Everyone is not going to participate. That's okay. There were many more people in attendance than voted here. It was interesting to go back and look at the numbers later, but it was enough people between that and the chat was just blowing up. So for some people, they may have said, you know what, I'm not going to do this other piece. That's cute, whatever. That's okay. It's okay. It was an optional thing. Some people would participate, some people wouldn't. But overall, people were participating in some fashion. So that's another piece. It gave them options for ways to engage with one another and with the content and the presentation. So, and then again, we just came back very simple. These are very simple. And again, I would not have these showing the whole time. I would, after I finished a particular section, I would bring the slideshare back up. I would say, okay, now we're going to pick our next location, and boom, here they're going to vote again. Okay, yay, that's where we're going. And again, once I got that, then I would just stop the slideshare because they don't need to be sitting there staring at that the whole time. And then you have just sort of the slide to wrap things up. Okay, and then it was a closing slide with a little offer of some additional materials and things like that. But that just gives you an idea of how simple it is. So really, it was just giving them sort of a visual indicator that we were going on this trip and there were going to be choices, giving them a way to choose which choice they wanted to follow. Also opens up, there's a couple of other little subtle gamified tricks in there. So some people in the audience have a little FOMO, right? So when they picked, that means there were topics we didn't talk about. That got some people curious because now it's like, ooh, what am I missing? What would she have talked about if we'd picked the other choice? So it's a subtle way to also build some curiosity and some mystery and surprise into the presentation. And all of these things can be extremely engaging for people. So again, sometimes, you can layer things in there. And I love to do that. I love to layer things in there. And I even had little other subtle things. And this will be my final little side detour for today, because this video is going to probably be much longer than I anticipated. But this conference had a theme of it had a 90s. There was a 90s aspect to the theme of the conference. And so we were on this road trip, right? So I did things like reference Tom Tom, which was big in the 90s. Like that was something people would recognize as being something of that era. And I would try to sprinkle in, and I had a few other ones. Now, did everybody get that? that I had gone that extra level of, really digging into their theme in addition to the theme that I kind of had given this presentation? Probably not. Maybe a few people got it. It might have made them smile. It made them, it might have made them laugh a little bit. Might have made them reflect. Oh yeah, I remember that, or something like that. Um, but you know what? It's not wasted. It's like a little extra Easter egg, and I love to do that in presentations. Is find those little things, and you know what? If nobody caught on to it other than me, that's okay. Because you know what? As the presenter, as the instructor, whatever, you need to maintain the passion and the fun and the excitement about what you're talking about. And so for me to think, ooh, there's some little inside, jokes here, there's some little inside, that might be enough. That might be enough if I was the only one that got it. I'm okay with that. So anyway, so that's how you do it. Um, if you have any questions or you want to talk through how to do this, I help people do this kind of stuff. So feel free to contact me. We can arrange something where we can make your next presentation, keynote, class, whatever, way more engaging, both for the learners and for you.